Kansas State leadership is sounding off about the problems of this new rev share happening in college athletics. And they're not wrong. They're making actually a lot of good points. We'll cover it right here on Locked On Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. We're getting into another episode here on Locked On Kansas State. Before we do, click that subscribe button. We are very close to 800 subscribers. If you're listening in audio, I thank you. Those audio numbers are only growing every single day. It's so fun watching this community build. So thank you. We're digging into the revenue sharing question today. We're digging into some NCAA problems. And if you visited an episode I had just a few days ago with Nick Maravitz of Locked On Cyclones, we're going to dig even deeper. And this is an even bigger problem. And now we're hearing it directly from Kansas State leadership, and they're making some very valid points. So we're going to dig into that on today's episode. Before we do that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, this all stems from a report that came out last Wednesday, March 26th, from senior college football reporter Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. And if you do not follow him, I recommend you do. If you don't have social media, just check out Yahoo Sports. Anytime he writes anything, I believe it's just absolute gold. He has some really good stuff coming out, especially if you're looking at any type of litigation or anything in the eyes of college athletics in this new world of NIL, this new world of what this rev share is about to be, and so much more. I really love when we get these nuggets, if you will, from Ross Dellinger. But he comes out with this report, and the title is, Could Impending Rev Share Changes Help Cinderellas in the Future? Quote, everybody will be in the game. Now, it's a really good timing for that title because as we enter the Final Four, they're all one seeds. It's all chalk. And unlike we've had in the past with teams like UConn being a one seed, it's not the case this year. Duke being the ACC team, a Power 4 school. You have Auburn, you have Florida, SEC schools being number one schools. And of course, as a Big 12 believer, save the best for last, the Houston Cougars, a one seed. All the teams left in the Final Four are Power 4 schools. No Cinderella schools this year on both the men's and women's side. Cinderella decided not to come to the ball this year. And that's just exactly what happened when it came to college basketball. How long will that happen? And right now you have this narrative. Before we dig into this article, let me just get on this conversation. You have this narrative going across. Either you hear it from the halftime shows during March Madness. Maybe it's like Charles Barkley and those guys talking about it, saying how they're worried about how the transfer portal itself is affecting these smaller schools, where they are really good one year and then next thing you know, a Power 4 school poaches them. That's definitely an issue, I'm sure, for some schools. And we're seeing multiple things happen with those mid-majors, if you will, have to change their course. But for how long? But for how much longer? And the reason behind that I say that is because everybody is about to be able to give a same amount of money with this new rev share report coming in, this new directive, if you will. $20.5 million is going to be the number. And if you're a mid-major school, and I'm pointing mostly at the Big East right now, and you could talk about other conferences as well, but in the eye of college basketball, I think when you think mid-major, not the Power 4 schools, you think the Big East. And there's probably a few people, more than a few, that would say in basketball, the Big East is not mid-major. I mean, the UConn, who won the last two of however many national championships, they've won the last two, not this year, of course, is considered a mid-major school. And that's because of the conference they're in. Obviously, they don't focus on football. They're an independent in football. We'll see if that changes in the future. We'll get to that in just a second because it does tie into another conversation I want to have on this show. But what I'm getting at here is these mid-majors are about to have a huge advantage when it comes to college basketball, especially on the men's side. The reason I get to that is because they don't have to worry about pushing their money towards the college football programs like we do at Kansas State, like the Big 12 has to do, because the Big 12 is a great conference, a pristine conference in both college football and college basketball. You don't have to worry about that if you are Villanova, right? Who doesn't have a football program at the FBS level, with UConn, who might as well be at the FCS level as well. In some cases, though, he reports here that by most accounts, 4 of the 5 Power League programs spent more on their rosters than their mid-major opponents, talking about college basketball. In some cases, as much by $2 million. Of course, the only outlier here is UConn. UConn has been a really huge contributor in this new NIL world right off the bat. And I've heard this from many, many folks who are UConn fans, especially some in the Locked On community here. And they say that's all we have up in UConn is basketball. So they put everything they absolutely can for it. I mean, if you ever go on a UConn YouTube video alone, I mean, you'll see the love and support and all that crazy things about that as well. So it makes sense that UConn is the outlier here. But then he leads on and says, perhaps soon enough, these mid-majors will actually be the one with the bigger basketball budgets. In the Big East, says Duke Athletic Director Nina King, their basketball revenue share portion will be a lot more than what those of us can do who have Division I power football programs. And you talk about this $20.5 million. There was an ACC representative, a random coach, not a random, an anonymous coach that came out a few weeks ago. It said it would cost approximately $6 million in this transfer portal to build a top 25 school in next season. If you have to worry about this escalating cap of $20.5 million in the first year of this revenue, you're talking about, can you get to $6 million if you are at Kansas State, where you have to focus a lot more of your NIL towards building a football program, who won the Big 12 championship in 2022, who has had great seasons over and over again the past couple seasons, who started off 7-1, who has all this crazy momentum heading up in the right direction. And I don't think you can. I think you have to. And I think we saw that just this past season, even with the amount of money that you spent towards a Coleman Hawkins, towards a couple other transfer players coming in, that number's only going to rise with this cap number. And you might not be able to keep up and compete. There's going to have to be a decision to be made if you are willing to make that decision. If not, you're either going to be mediocre in both, or you're going to be very good in one, bad in the other. Like, it's going to be very hard to find this balance. The Power 4 schools that find that balance are going to turn into almost dynasty-like programs, and it's only going to help with recruiting, with the portal, with everything else. It's a win-win advantage for everyone who finds the right balance. But what is that balance? Is that balance only leaving roughly $2 million to $4 million to be directly shared with men's basketball? Is that enough? According to this ACC coach, he doesn't think that's enough. He doesn't think $2 to $4 million is enough. He's more on the $6 million side. Houston Athletic Director, a team that is in the Final Four right now, Eddie Nunez, is quoted in this article that says Big East schools next year can pay $6 million or more to their basketball team. Quote, and that's a game changer. You're hearing that from the athletic director of a school in the Big 12, who, as of right now, I think we can agree, there is an balance on each side, where there are some schools in the Big 12 that focus more on the basketball side. I'd say Houston's there. I'd say our in-state team, Kansas Jayhawks, are on that side as well. If you look at how they play against us in football, I think they have no other choice that they have to focus on basketball. And he's saying that this Big East, this revenue sharing, is going to help mid-major conferences like the Big East. An absolute game changer, he says. As many as a dozen non-Power League Division I schools, many of them will be in the Big East, are planning to spend at least $5 million on their men's basketball roster next year, according to Ross Dellinger, with a small group hoping to reach $6 to $7 million marks with that knowledge. million cap. With this $20.5 million cap, $6 to $7 million cannot go to the men's basketball team. It's got to go more towards football. You got to worry about your other non-revenue gaining sports as well. You just had a women's basketball team that has a great recruiting class coming in and wants to find a way to get back to the Sweet 16 and beyond. $6 to $7 million for a basketball squad that's going to be tough to do. But this is a problem technically in the future. And we're going to talk about that next. And what does it really mean for the Big 12 and Kansas State as a whole? And we have actual quotes from Gene Taylor about how nervous he is. We're going to talk about that right here next on Locked On Kansas State. Well, ever check your bank account and wonder where all my money went? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. No, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress, and find your way to stay off the couch. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This episode is also sponsored by Game Time. Imagine watching your favorite team live and feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Well, getting tickets shouldn't be stressful for those moments. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time picks have curations that are made easy to find better value for tickets to sports, comedy, concerts, theater, you name it. It's all there at Game Time. Their super deals, the lowest price guaranteed, will credit you 110% of the difference if they can't match that. Gotta love that. It's a peace of mind with seats, views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball. Isaac Shade, Andy Patton have you covered throughout this entire March Madness, all the way down from the Final Four in San Antonio to that national championship. So check them out anywhere you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Always free and available here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking this revenue sharing issue today, and we dug into it a little bit. The $20.5 million number is what is ruled right now. The escalating cap. Under this new college sports, new revenue share rules, schools will be permitted to distribute a pool of revenue to athletes up to an annual escalating cap, as I mentioned, of $20.5 million in the first league. The permitted number is actually interesting, that word permitted, because not every school is going to reach that $20.5 million. Will Kansas State? I sure hope so. But when you look at numbers, the revenue in 2021, I believe what I was looking at when we were comparing, and you had numbers that were, I think 2021 was the last number that I saw for Kansas State that showed every other Big 12 school. And obviously this was before some other Big 12 schools came in. 2023, I saw some different numbers as well, but it was not showing every Big 12 school. So I'm going to go at 2021 just for this conversation here. And it was showing that Kansas State had a revenue of $100 million, give or take. Now, Utah, who just came in, is around the same spot. But you also have other schools like Cincinnati who do not fall in that range. You also have schools like Texas, who was in the Big 12 at that time, left for the SEC. They had a revenue of $275 million. So it makes you wonder if every school is going to actually reach and hit that $20.5 million at the Power 4 level. We know that's not going to happen at the mid-major level. I mean, we're talking about Big East schools possibly hitting $6 to $7 million for the men's team. Now, that's a lot of money in hindsight, but when you only have to really focus on that school, you don't have as many other sports. You don't have to worry about an FBS football team. It balances out. And technically, they probably could spend more. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more Big East schools compete and be at the top of the NCAA tournament, high seeds. Heck, it might be even more than just the Big East and mid majors. Let's talk about the conference just next to the Big East, the Atlantic 10. Adrian Wojnarowski, who left ESPN as a senior insider to go back to be the GM of the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. I have a feeling they're going to spend money. How much money are they going to bring into Olean, New York? How are they going to be able to do that? Makes you really wonder if they can find a way to bring in the right players, spend the money, and get themselves back into the NCAA tournament, something that they haven't done in quite some time. If you're an old head and you know college ball back in the day, that's a school that in the 70s with a team like Bob Lanier found themselves in the NCAA tournament all the time. That's a school to me, honestly, who should be in the Big East, not the Atlantic 10, but I digress. How much of this will be Cinderella stories? And what will this do to the Big 12 and to Kansas State? That's probably the biggest thing that we need to talk about here. Quote, I know our coaches are worried. They've openly talked about it in the article by Ross Dellinger from Kansas State Athletic Director Gene Taylor. Quote, that's where the rumors start to fly about circumventing the cap. Are we going to get back under the table again? He mentioned a lot of good points here. Let's talk about the very first part. Coaches are worried. Why wouldn't you be worried? And I think Kansas State saw this firsthand with the issues, with the amount of money that was being floated around, with the expectations that they had against players such as Coleman Hawkins. And then, of course, at the end here, are we going to go back under the table? I'm going to save that for the last segment because I think we can really dig into that. But with Kansas State, Jerome Tang obviously gave a higher expectation to Coleman Hawkins. The coaching staff had a higher expectation of him. What he did at Illinois was fantastic. There's no doubt about it. I think even if we didn't know the amount of money that Coleman Hawkins was making, I think that expectation would still be high. It might not be as high on a level like people are feeling. And is it righteously so? I'll let you be the judge of that. You got obviously gambling burners in social media sending him terrible messages. That is uncalled for. But unfortunately, I think in the world that we live in today, not that I'm advocating for it or saying it's okay, but the world that we're living in today, I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And I think with this new rev share, with this cap, I think the amount of money, the value of the player that you are going to be spending to get to your program is going to make it actually a little bit more aggressive at that moment. Because now if you spend $2 million on a player, now you're talking about 10% of your entire university's revenue sharing. Now you can put an actual number to how much he or she, supposed to be valued to not just that program, but to the entire university's athletic program. That's a crazy thing to think about, but that's absolutely what you are going to see. And I would not be shocked to actually see national pundits do the same thing on some of these big schools, these big shows. This is going to affect the Big 12 as well. It's not just a Kansas State problem. It's a Big 12 problem. And I'll go right to the very top at the Big 12 with Brett Yormark. Brett Yormark has led to go in two directions with this conference. Of course, he's expanded over the last couple of years. I mean, the expansions really started in the Big 12 when Texas and Oklahoma decided to leave for the SEC. That started this whole thing, this entire domino effect. If you do not like what's going on with realignment right now, it started in our backyard. It started in the Big 12. So finding a way to mitigate it is really out of the question now. But bringing in teams like Arizona, Arizona State, BYU, Utah, when you think of Arizona, you don't think of them as a football team, do you? They're a basketball school. when you talk about him with his Big 12 media days, he focused it more on the basketball side. Brett Yormark's a basketball guy. What does that mean for the rev sharing program? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? When he wants to expand, what's he want to expand with? He wants to bring UConn into the Big 12. He's talked about that in the past. That's not going to help the football program. It might make UConn have to push more towards their football team and rev share in this cap world, if you will. So does that mean their actual basketball program is worse if they come to the Big 12? And then he's also pointed at reaching out maybe for a team like Gonzaga, a team that does not have a football team. So it would be a strictly basketball only Big 12 competitor that would be hopefully using the money like UConn would be trying to do in this case. But they're considered a mid-major right now because they're in the WCC. Is it the right call for Brett Yormark to continue to push towards basketball schools in a world right now where you have to find a balance? I don't think it's the right move. Unless you're fully expecting those teams, like a UConn, like a Gonzaga, to be at the very top of the country with the fact that they just get to represent Big 12 on their jerseys now. But year after year, be at the very top of the country in college basketball. If that is the expectation and the only expectation you're giving them as a Big 12 member, then maybe that's the right call. But in the eyes of a UConn, if you bring them in, you're obviously going to bring them in the football world as well, unless they decide to stay independent as a football team, which I guess is entirely possible since they do not have a conference right now in football. But if they decide to come as a Big 12 conference member, your only expectation to them is probably going to be very good at basketball. And then you're a gimme game in football. Like you're the teams, everybody's going to line up to play you on homecoming. Senior night, we hope we'll play in UConn. We'll win 52-0. That's just a tough break for trying to explain year after year. One of the biggest arguments that the Big 12 has had against every other conference when it comes to football, trying to compare and contrast against the SEC and the Big 10, is that from top to bottom, this league is absolute chaos. You can't say the same thing if you have a team like UConn, who's acting like a Vanderbilt in most years, who's acting like a Rutgers in most years, Northwestern. We would finally have that. We don't have that right now. Even with some of the teams like Cincinnati, who had that really good year a few years ago, made it to the college football playoffs, and then ever since then just faded off the side of the earth, if you will. We really don't have that. You walk into Big 12 media days at football and you see the standings, and for the last couple seasons, the team that's been predicted to finish in the bottom three has won the whole thing. That's probably not the same case if UConn comes in as a football contender. All right, getting a little off track here, but that was a fun little conversation. Let's finish this up with the possibility. Are we going back under the table again? And what does he mean by that? Does he mean cheating? Is cheating coming back to the world of college athletics? Let's talk about that right here as we finish up this show of Locked On Kansas State. Well, get the supplies you need from the site made from the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources from the latest product info to get you the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, well, Supply House expects support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. Let's finish this up with this rev share conversation here. Cheating. Is cheating going to come back into the world of college athletics? Now, I'm sure I'm going to get at least one comment on wherever you're listening, on YouTube, audio, whatever the case may be, saying that cheating's never left. Cheating's always been here. Okay, fine. But in the eyes of this new NIL, this transfer portal, it's not. Almost everything is allowed. Things are about to change with that, though. With the rev share moving to this cap of $20.5 million by year one, it is eventually going to possibly lead back to cheating. Now, I don't know if we're going like SMU levels of cheating. I don't think we're going to get to that, because with all these other things still allowed, I don't think it's going to get to that portion. Jeff Goodman Hoops on Twitter brought up a good point when he quote tweeted off of this Dellinger article. He said, the new rev share model is absolutely going to encourage cheating again, especially if some of the third-party deals aren't cleared by the NCAA. It'll result in lawsuits and cheating. Capping college athletes' pay without their agreements will just drive payments under the table again. It absolutely will. And the NCAA is now talking about this new process as well. This is with this House legislation thing that's coming to full circle on Capitol Hill in just a few days. I believe April 7th is what we talked about in that lawsuit, where the NCAA is trying to get their hands back in the cookie jar and make sure that some third-party deals can't get accepted, and they have to go through the NCAA to make happen. This is, I think, is a power grab by the NCAA, but I also think it's a way to try and make balance. It's a tough way to have a conversation about right now. But what I will say is, if these happen the way it is, and to be honest, I think even with this cap, because this cap is going to be reported deals. That's all this is going to be. I don't think you have to be a brilliant person, a rocket scientist, a genius, whatever you want to say, to think only $20.5 million of this stuff has to be reported. There are going to be programs that will find a competitive edge. And if you're listening on audio, I use quotations there. They're going to find a way to use a competitive edge to make sure they're better than the team next to them. It's 100% going to happen. These payments under the table, if third-party deals are pushed out, they're going to find a way to support their programs. With this new NIL world, one thing we have learned is that there are donors, there are alumni that are willing to do a lot more than most people expected just to find a way to get their team to win on the field. We're seeing it from professional athletes now. We're seeing it from major media members, politicians, you name it. People with heavy, deep pockets are finding a way to dish money in. And right now it's legal. But when it's not, once again, it was already very hard to determine before we had any of these rules set. That's the reason why these rules came in the first place. It was already very hard to determine who was cheating and who was not. And those investigations almost became laughable at some point. So what I'm getting at here is that when these new things happen, people will still find a way, regardless of the caps, the limits, the ceilings, whatever they put up, whatever barrier is in their way. If somebody wants to find a way to make their team better, and I'm not saying it has to be an official person of the university, because that's not what I'm saying, because it's usually never the case, actually, they'll find a way to do it. So I absolutely agree that this will bring in cheating, 100%. So just be ready for it. Just be prepared for it. And be prepared for these investigations again, Be prepared for tournament bans, players and coaches getting suspended. It's going to happen. Just be prepared. Let me know what you think about this new rev share model, because this is, like I said, it's like I said in last episode, it's ever growing. And this is an evergreen topic right now because it's still new. $20.5 million a year in year one. And right now, this is like the last year that you can kind of front load the paychecks where it's not going to reach that $20.5 million. So we're going to see probably some schools be very aggressive this season in the portal before this comes in. So far, Kansas State's not one of those teams. At least, hopefully, this is what they see as aggressive. But I want to know what it's going to do at Kansas State. I want to know, does that mean that they're going to follow the revenue plan of 70 to 85% to football? This is like the most common formula. 70 to 85% of the $20.5 million go to football, and then 10 to 20% to men's basketball. And then that final 10 to 15% goes to all the other sports. That's going to be what most programs do. Is Kansas State going to follow that? Now, there's a lot of leeway there, so I expect probably to be the case. But is Kansas State on the 85% football or more on the 70% football? If you're on the 85% the football, does that mean that you should expect to win the Big 12 every year? We already expect that right now. If you're on the 70%, are you just hoping to make a bowl game? Like, where is the expectations move when that number is shifted? 70%. Does that mean that your expectations now become just make a bowl game and you're happy? Because we're going to push 20 to 25% to the men's basketball team so we can be a good football team and a great basketball team? Or are we going to be a great football team with a good basketball team that hopefully makes the tournament like we are right now? What would you rather have? Would you rather have a season like we had this past season? We started off 7-1. I mean, let's be honest. Should have made the Big 12 championship game. So let's just say that. Would you rather have a football team that's in the Big 12 championship game every year, a chance at the college football playoffs, and a men's basketball team who just misses the tournament? Or would you have it the other way around? A basketball team who's a 1 or 2 seed every single year, the top of the Big 12, basically what Houston is right now. You be the judge. Let me know in the comment description below. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back here with another episode soon, right here on Locked On Kansas State.